Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of What If. This is basically me talking about TV shows that ended, that even if they were canceled, they have a proper ending, but basically this is me talking about stuff that I'm like, what if it continued? I actually don't even know if that's the previous intro I used for these or not, because it's been a while since I've done one. But regardless, for today's episode, I'm going to talk about the HBO series Watchmen, and what if it had continued? What if it had gotten a second season? Because this is an interesting conversation, because obviously, as you may or may not be aware of, Watchmen is a one and done. It wasn't till I think partway through, it might have been before the show aired, but they kind of made it clear that it was going to be a one and done type of situation. But obviously that was a point of conversation for a lot of people, because so many people enjoy the show. They're like, are you going to do a second season? And some people were kind of like, the show was so good on its own, like the way it ends is great, perfect, don't do a second season. And even I had said this myself, I was fine either way they decided to do it, whether it was going to be if they do a second season, I'm cool with that. If they decide to end it here, I'm cool with it. I was kind of fine either way. So nevertheless, so the interesting thing about this whole thing, I feel like if you did do a second season, for one, you'd probably, and this is kind of getting in spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen all of Watchmen, beware. But it seems like, I feel like if you did a second season, you'd kind of be forced to answer the question at the end, and that being whether or not Angela got the powers or not. Some people are speculating definitely she did, because if you look at the promotional material, like the poster for it, it's of Angela, and then part of her is blue, so it's supposed to represent she got Dr. Manhattan's powers. That's what some people theorize. But obviously they kept it ambiguous to be it's up to you. We will never give you the answer for this. It's up to you to decide. Do you think Angela got it? Do you think not? I don't know if you did do a second season, I don't think you'd go back to that. I kind of got the feeling at that point, I feel like Watchmen would probably become an anthology, whereas the second season would be completely unrelated. There might be tie-ins from other stuff in from season one, but it'd most likely probably be its own story taking place somewhere else in the world, which is interesting because obviously certain aspects of the show took place internationally, but obviously it mainly took place in one area, in one town, so there's a lot more in that world you can dive into, because obviously there were some things that weren't quite answered about, because there's some of the stuff in between, the events in Watchmen, the comic / graphic novel, and the TV show. Obviously there's still a lot of one in 20-30 years span time, you didn't get all the ins and outs of what went down, but that might be something you get certain winks and nods about where some characters landed. This is also coming from someone who has yet to ever read the graphic novel, because I have only ever watched the Zack Snyder movie. But regardless, I feel like there's still just so much you could do in that world, especially the whole angle of vigilantes, and stuff like that, obviously becoming obviously a more widespread thing, because obviously it has become more of a widespread thing. But like I said, you spend most of the show in one isolated area. Like I said, every once in a while venturing out internationally. But I'd be so curious, what new characters you'd follow. It'd probably be because once again, like I said, because I'm not well versed in a graphic novel, because I haven't read it, I don't know what else they could pull from it to kind of make a show on its own. I mean, there's probably certain elements within this, like I said, that they could spin off with just new characters. But I feel like the story that was set up in, the graphic novel Watchmen, plus the story that they continued with that and making their own story in the TV show, all that is connected and closed. I think they put a stamp on it, and this story's complete. So that's why I do definitely feel like future seasons, if there were any, would definitely be a very anthology type of thing. Each season would be something new, essentially. So I would just be so curious to see where they would have gone with the second season. Obviously, Watchmen did it. I mean, this applies both to the graphic novel as well as the TV show. Obviously, applying a lot of real world issues and blending it into this very amazing story. So it's obviously they probably continue down that route, but it's always that conversation that I've had, always end the show when you want to, end it on your terms. And if they made the choice to be oh, we want this to be a one and done, they could have continued the show. But I know Damon Lindelof was kind of if the show comes back for a second season, I just won't be a part of it, just because he went into this with the intentions of it being a one-off, so it's still just, it's like I said, it's just an interesting, situation. I mean, but I'd say all this saying like we follow new characters, but you probably would get hints. I mean, because even if you could probably get around never answering the whole Angela being Dr. in Manhattan days, because like maybe it's like she keeps that to herself. She doesn't let anybody know about that. But I feel like if you went off, like, did other stuff, you would never really have to answer that necessarily. But it's like, that will always be the glaring question in that universe. It's like, well, I mean, not unless you actually, you could probably do some prequel stuff, I guess, like some of that in-between space, in between the events of the graphic novel and the TV show. Like, you can get in those decades, like, you could probably do something in those veins as well. But you'd also have to interconnect with some of the stuff that took place in between as well, like, because obviously that would overlap with some of Angela's story and other character story, so you probably have to answer to some of that as well. So it just, I don't know. I'd be curious to see, what a second season would have looked like, and even if they went beyond that. Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe if they did a second season, this would definitely be the end. But like I said, it's an anthology, so there's a lot more world building you can continue to do, and build up new characters within this universe. Obviously, these are just some of my thoughts. I'd love to get to know yours in the comments down below. First and foremost, were you someone that wanted a second season of Watchmen, or were you like, nah, I was totally fine with it being a one and done and no one ever touching it again? Or maybe some people, I mean, also, did you like the show? Because I know there's some people who probably just didn't like the show, just wasn't their cup of tea, and that's fine. I'm curious about that. But also, if you did want a second season, what would you have liked to have seen? Because that's also the thing too, like, obviously, this is a one-off now, but I mean, who's to say later on down the road? It could be decades from now, years from now, at the very least, where someone decides, hey, I like what they did in that Watchmen show, I'm gonna bring Watchmen back and do my own thing with it. I mean, I think that happened in the comic books, I mean, the graphic novels as well, because I think there have been sequels that Alan Moore isn't tied to. Obviously, everyone, you hear about how Alan Moore is very protective of Watchmen, that he doesn't want to have anything with people kind of commercializing it the way they have and kind of continuing. It's like, this is his baby, so, and a lot of people respect him for that. But it's like, I'm curious, because I think there are like sequel comic books and stuff like that. So, much like this TV show is kind of its own thing while also pulling in the history and the world of the original graphic novel, who's to say someone doesn't go like, hey, I'm gonna pick up where the HBO series left off and do my own thing as well. Like, it could be kind of rebooted in that same vein. Like, it could always be someone that's like, I'm just going to try and do my own thing. I'm not going to do what they did. I'm going to take this world in my own direction. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You never know with those type of situations, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. So, like I'm rambling, but, I'd love to get to know your thoughts about everything. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.